If you have not seen my original commentary on Redeemed Zoomer, I'm not going to act like it will be required to understand what I'm going to say in this commentary. However, I imagine it would be helpful. You see, previous commentary target, Redeemed Zoomer, recently released a video specifically listing out all of the arguments for God, one of which being the one I already covered. So let's see if he does a better job making it this time around.
Then there's the argument from mathematics, which says there's an infinite reality higher than our physical universe. So basic math isn't all that special. For example, the number 5 corresponds to 5 apples, and 5 times 3 corresponds to 3 groups of 5 apples. But the more you get into advanced math, the more math starts to get disconnected from our world, but it still works. For example, there's real numbers, which are numbers that correspond to real things, but there's also imaginary numbers that are just as mathematically real, but they don't correspond to the real world, which is why they're not called real numbers. But they still exist mathematically, even though they don't exist in the real world.
But imaginary numbers do exist in the real world. They actually play an incredibly important role in electrical engineering, for example. Also, while you're dismissing the existence of imaginary numbers in the real world, you don't do the same with negative numbers, even though those also don't really exist in the real world on their own. You can't have -1 apples, for example. You can be in debt, but you can't have a negative amount of money on you, I guess, unless you have the -$12 bill. You know, the one with Quentin Trimbley's face on it.
Just know that I'll always be right here on the -$12 bill.
Whoa. This is worthless.
It's less than worthless, my boy.
Let's look at the 5 most important numbers in mathematics. 1 is obviously important because it's the basis for all real numbers. 0 is very important because it's necessary for doing algebra. I is very important because it's the basis for all imaginary numbers. E is very important for doing exponential functions, and pi is necessary for doing math with circles. Now, all these numbers are seemingly unrelated to each other, but they fit together beautifully in this equation called Euler's identity. It was discovered by Euler, one of the greatest mathematicians in history, and he saw this as proof that math was designed by God. Also, Euler was a devout Calvinist.
I mean, that's a neat coincidence. However, you don't actually provide an argument for that meaning math is divinely inspired. You just say the person who came up with the equation said it was, which may very well be true, but it holds no relevance. Without presenting an actual argument, I can just say that I respectfully disagree, and you can't really say anything in response, now can you?
More evidence that math has a designer is the Mandelbrot set, which is generated by a very simple equation in the complex plane, but it produces infinite detail. You can keep zooming in on this shape, and it will keep generating more and more complexity, even though nobody designed this. The Mandelbrot set is infinite, and it's not found anywhere in our universe, so that means whatever created it must also be infinite and not from our universe.
But the Mandelbrot set was created by humans. You do show the Mandelbrot set equation, but that doesn't do anything on its own. If you write the equation on a piece of paper, nothing's going to happen. You have to plug numbers into the equation, calculate the results, and graph them accordingly for the Mandelbrot set to exist. I should also note this isn't what the Mandelbrot set would look like once actually completed. We don't really know what it would look like because we simply can't access that information. I'm going to try to explain this, but I apologize if I get any terminology wrong. I am not a mathematician. Essentially, the black part of the set is stuff that when plugged back into the Mandelbrot set, never gets any bigger than 2. You see, an important part of this equation is plugging the results back into said equation a certain number of times. The more times you do this, the greater detail you will get in the image created. However, the only way to really properly do this is to plug the number back into the equation an infinite amount of times, which is impossible. We just can't do that. Anyway, final thoughts. The arguments in this video are completely unpersuasive once again. Good night and good luck.